good time. I really appreciate today. This has been a lot of fun for us to do this. Get back over to the right scripture for today. Back to the basics. But when we think about that, often we get wrapped up in life. And you consider how life is today versus years ago. Many of you have DVRs. You can record any show on TV. And some of these systems, they will record, 5 shows at one time. I thought, man, that's a lot of TV watching to have. You know, we think about the cars, how sophisticated they are. When you've got computers that are in there, you can download pictures and you can actually do your navigation. I mean, life is so sophisticated. But sometimes it's good to get back to the basics. When we think about right now, and Melrose, I'm surprised Melrose isn't here, she must not be feeling well. Now, for those of you who don't know, Melrose is a huge baseball fan.
Basketball.
Baseball too. Atlanta Braves, oh yeah, she's a huge baseball fan. Well, right now, this is spring training. And they gather the pitchers and catchers a couple of weeks before the position players come. But often what they're doing in basic training is getting back to the basics. They're working on the fundamentals, trying to not only get them back in physical shape, into game shape, but working on the fundamentals. If you're a golfer, and you start seeing that maybe your scores are not doing what you want, that you're slicing, you're hooking more, and you find a coach, the coach typically will take you back to the basics. They'll talk about grip, they'll talk about the stance, they'll talk about the setup over the ball, before you ever think about actually swinging. When Vince Lombardi was coaching the Green Bay Packers, it was a well-known fact that every year, the first day of practice, he'd gather all the players around, he'd hold up a pigskin and say, "Gentlemen, this is a football." He went back to the basics. He focused on fundamentals. You see, and it doesn't matter what we're talking about. When we get back to the basics, we strip away all the clutter, all the excess, all the distractions that life can bring to us. So whether you're talking about a pitcher's mechanics, or a golfer's swing, or blocking a football running back, often going back to the basics is what we have to do. And that's what we're doing today. You know, if you don't have a Bible with you, we've got some extras around here so that you have a chance to be able to read that, because you're not going to have it on the screen today. Now, you have the basic text on your bulletin, but we also are going to be using some other verses that won't be on the bulletin, because it really entails this entire chapter of 1 Samuel. 1 Samuel chapter 17, and the verses you're going to be focusing on primarily is verses 32 through 37. 1 Samuel 17, verses 32 to 37. I ask that you stand as we honor the reading of God's Word this morning. David said to Saul, "Let no one lose heart on account of this Philistine." Speaking of Goliath, a story that we're all very familiar with. "Your servant will go and fight him." Saul replied, "You are not able to go out against this Philistine and fight him. You are only a boy. He has been a fighting man since his youth." But David said to Saul, "Your servant has been keeping his father's sheep. When a lion or a bear came and carried off a sheep from the flock, I went after him, struck him, and rescued the sheep from its mouth. When it turned on me, I seized it by its hair, struck it, and killed it. Your servant has killed both the lion and the bear. This uncircumcised Philistine will be like one of them, because he has defied the armies of the living God. The Lord who delivered me from the paw of the lion and the paw of the bear will deliver me from the hand of this Philistine." Let's pray. Father, today we're going to see a great example of how you're working through the lives of an individual. An individual who, without your guidance, your direction, is just an ordinary man. But when we are filled with your Spirit, when we're filled with your direction, filled with love for you and a desire to serve, God, the things you accomplish through us are truly amazing. We know that there's a giant that faces us. It's the world that doesn't believe in you. Father, prepare us for our battle with this giant that is in front of us each and every day. We love you, Lord. Pray you will be glorified this morning. In the name of Jesus. Just to give us a little bit of background on how we got to this stage, where David's ready to go out and take on Goliath. In chapter 15 of 1 Samuel, we see how Saul has fallen out of favor with God. Samuel had come to Saul and he said, you're supposed to go over here, you're supposed to attack, kill everyone, destroy all the livestock. This is what God has said. But Saul, like we, sometimes want to go do things our own way. And Saul didn't have his men kill all of the enemy. And they killed some of the animals, but they kept the best. So later when Samuel comes and confronts Saul, Saul said, well, we kept the best so we could offer a sacrifice to your God. You notice now, Saul's the king of Israel, God's people. But we save the best animals to make a sacrifice to your God, Samuel's God. Not saying it's my God, to your God. So Saul has fallen out of favor with God because he didn't obey the instructions he was given. In chapter 16, because Saul's out of favor, God said, I'm going to have a new king. So he sends Samuel to Jesse. Jesse has 8 sons. And he said, I want you to anoint one. They go through 7. God said, not here. And Samuel asked Jesse, said, do you have any more sons? Well, I've got one. He's out in the field. The youngest. Bring him. So they bring David in. And God says, this is my man. So David has been anointed as a successor to King Saul. So we're up to this point. Now, David is still a young man. He's tending his father's sheep. But his 3 older brothers are in Saul's army. And they're going out every day. They're lined up on one side. Philistines are on the other side. And they each come out each morning, and they've got their battle lines. They come to their positions. And it's amazing how you think the Israelites would be ready to go to war. But this has been going on for 40 days. They come out, the Philistines come out, and they all just stand there. And Goliath has been coming out. Goliath has been coming out, and he's got his insults. And he's saying, you guys are a bunch of wimps. You don't know what you're doing. Send me your best man. Send me your best man. And I'm going to take care of him. Exactly what does he say? If you find the verse, let me know what it is there. Oh, here it is, verse 8. Goliath stood and shouted to the ranks of Israel, why do you come out and line up for battle? He's saying you aren't going to do anything. Am I not a Philistine, and are you not the servants of Saul? Choose a man and have him come down to me. If he is able to fight and kill me, we will become your subjects. But if I overcome him and kill him, you will become our subjects and servants. Every morning, every night, this is what Goliath does. And the Israelites are scared. And Goliath challenges them, why do you bother coming out? You're not going to send anyone to fight me, and you aren't going to come out against our army. Why do you do this? Cowards. So David comes, because his father Jesse said, here, take some food to your brothers. Go and check on your brothers, and then come back and tell me how things are going with them. He wants to know about the status of his children, as any parent would. So David goes, and he leaves the supplies, and then he goes out to check on his brothers, goes to the front lines. And he's out there. Now the Israelites, when he gets there, they have gone out with their big war cry. And they go to the battle lines. They go and they take their positions. And David's probably thinking, I'm going to see some action here. And then Goliath comes out with his normal morning routine. There's a lot of bluster, a lot of bravado that Goliath has. But when we consider what's going on with David versus the Israelites, it's a huge difference. Let's think about this. Verse 32, David said to Saul, let no one lose heart on account of this Philistine. Now, David is a young man. This is the king. This is the boy talking to the boss. The boy talking to the boss. He's saying, let no one lose heart. Now, these are experienced warriors. David's got 3 older brothers who are in the army. Let no one lose heart because of this Philistine. Do you think that most young kids today would have that kind of confidence? Or would it be more bravado? Well, we see some kids who are raised today, and I think they're taught some things or allowed to learn some things that maybe they shouldn't. Lonnie Stevens was here Sunday night, he and his wife Cindy. And they're members over at First Hermitage. And one Sunday morning they were keeping the kids, the 2, 3, 4-year-olds. And there's one little girl, she's standing up in a rocking chair. And she's doing this moment. Well, Lonnie's concerned that she will fall out. He said, honey, you probably ought to get down. You might fall and hurt yourself. This 4-year-old kid jumps up at Lonnie's face. You don't talk to my girlfriend like that. You don't talk to my girlfriend. Looks at her. You do wherever you want. You don't talk to my girlfriend like that. He's 4 years old. Lonnie's a former police officer. Lonnie wants to cuff him and stuff him. Lonnie said, I don't think I can keep the kids anymore. I think Lonnie and this boy had a come to Jesus meeting at that. You see some kids, some young people today, some teenagers, they got some bravado. See, David wasn't about bravado. David's talking about this is someone who's insulting the God of Israel, who's defined the armies of the God, the true living God. He's saying, don't let anyone lose heart because of this. How important is that? When you're talking this morning about the need for encouragement, supporting one another. They've been going out there for 40 days. You notice how in the Bible, after 40 days, things change. Time after time after time. This has been 40 days, Goliath's been coming out, and now David's on the scene, and David says, no more. He doesn't know it's been going on for 40 days, but now he's here, no more. Now was Saul worried about this? Verse 11, after hearing what Goliath has to say, on hearing the Philistines' words, Saul and all the Israelites were dismayed and terrified. Not just a little bit worried, they're terrified. Because this guy is 9 feet plus tall. He is huge. They've got no one who can even come close to comparing physically to him. So, we can take Kenny out there. Kenny is a big man. We can take Johnny. Johnny's a big man. And they're going to be dwarfed by a guy who's over 9 feet tall. We look at the description. The armor that Goliath is wearing, 125 pounds of armor. Could you carry around 125 pounds of armor, let alone go into battle with that? The head of his spear weighed 15 pounds. So it means he's got to take this and throw that. And just the head alone is 15 pounds. He's a big dude. And Saul and all his guys, they're terrified. And David said, let no one be disheartened because of this Philistine. You see, when we've got God's power, when we look at this, think about the basics now. David had his boldness in God's strength. Not his own strength. He's a kid, he's a teenager. But he's got boldness in God's strength. 16th century Scottish reformer named John Knox was famous for his slogan, "Oh God, give me Scotland or I die." This is a guy that the Catholic Church was very oppressive, very restrictive. They wanted things certainly their own way. He's trying to create a Protestant movement in Scotland. He was threatened with imprisonment, with whippings, with beatings. And one day he preached to his church that's full. And then he was arrested because he preached outside the church, outside the Catholic Church. He is arrested for this. He's in prison. He is beaten. And he is given the worst of assignments, the worst job you could possibly have at the time. He's assigned as a slave rowing one of the galley ships. There he is in the belly of the ship, rowing with the oars. John Knox used that time to work on his prayer life, to develop himself spiritually, but also to develop himself physically. He began to become much stronger physically. He built his health up. He'd always been weak before. But this helped prepare him for the future, both spiritually, emotionally, and physically, for what he had to do. He's out there, he's saying, I'm going to preach the word regardless of the cost. His passion, his preaching became so powerful that the corrupt Mary, Queen of Scotland, said, I fear the prayers of John Knox more than all the assembled armies of Europe. She lost her head over this. She was beheaded. All the other corrupt leaders of Scotland lost their positions as well. On his tomb are the words, here lies the man who never feared the face of clay. There are idols out there. We're in a world today that are faces of clay. We see that we, as Christians, often are not bold. Last Saturday night, I didn't see this, I heard about it, maybe you heard about it on the news. Saturday Night Live had a skit that's mocking Jesus. That shows Jesus post-resurrection coming back, and he's a murderer. That's what he is. One scene showed him with a gun shooting Judas Iscariot and saying, "When you get to heaven, say hi to my dad." Showing him as a murderer. And they're using this like it's an intro, like a trailer for a movie. And Jesus is back. He's not practicing love, but he's sure here to kick. This is Saturday Night Live. If our world today, if Saturday Night Live did this, if they talked about Muhammad, if they had all used Islam, what would happen in our world? Would there be an uproar? Would the president be condemning them? I mean, we'd have so many people who would pick at them. The world just simply says, well, it's Christianity. It's okay. You see, we don't have the boldness that we need. Well, the word of this got out. JCPenney, Kmart, Sears, sponsors of this show. Well, because of the outrage, the people who contacted Sears/Kmart, they pulled their sponsorship of Saturday Night Live. Penny is the next target. You see, and sometimes we don't think about that. We're saying, well, that's what this company's doing. Folks, you can speak with your dollars. When you say, I'm not going to shop at this store anymore. I'm not going to spend my money at that particular investment company. I'm not going to do these things. And you let them know why you aren't. It builds up. The message gets across. John Knox was bold. David was bold. He was bold in God's power. But not only the basics for David to be successful, to do what God wanted him to do, didn't require just boldness in God's power, but also required belief in God's provision. If we look at verse 33, David said, "Don't let anyone be disheartened because of this Philistine." Saul replied, "You are not able to go out and fight against this Philistine. You're only a boy, and he has been a fighting man from his youth." See, logic, that's what Saul is using here. He's using logic. You know, you're a kid, you're a teenager, you've never been in battle. Saul, he's 9 feet tall plus, and he's been a fighting man for years. You don't have the experience. You don't have the skill. You can't do this. Probably that's why Saul and his men had not gone out to challenge Goliath previously, because they looked at it and said, he's got a lot of experience. He's a lot bigger than we are. We can't beat him. And you sure can't beat him. See, logic and God's will often in such contradiction. Logic doesn't accomplish what God says that a small church can do. It doesn't do what God says a big church can do. Logic doesn't allow those things to happen. I teach over at Hermitage Hills occasionally. Filled in last Sunday. Richard Presley, Dr. Richard Presley, was gone to South Carolina visiting with his daughter, son-in-law, and grandchild. He was telling us this morning that the church they went to, it started as a home Bible study. Now they have 8 campuses, 25,000 members. Logic says that won't happen. God says, when my people are faithful, when my people step up, it can happen. So David believed in God's provisions. Saul says, you can't do this. You're a kid. He got the experience. David's response to him, your servant's been keeping his father's sheep. When a lion or bear came and carried off a sheep from the flock, I went after it, struck it, and rescued the sheep from its mouth. Isn't that what Jesus did for us? He rescued us from certain death. When it turned on me, I seized it by its hair, struck it, and killed it. Not did I only rescue the sheep, but I also killed the attacker. See what David is saying? I was responsible. I was given a task by my father to care for the sheep. That's my job. I'm the shepherd. I am to protect them, make sure they're fed, they're watered, that they've got a good place to be. And now, here comes a bear, here comes a lion, and tries to take one. I fulfilled my responsibility and did it well. Not only did I rescue them, but I also killed the attacker. I can do this. It doesn't match up with logic, certainly. But David had believed in God's provision. Why did Saul not believe? Because God's Spirit had left Saul. God's Spirit had left him because God was unhappy with Saul. In fact, God had put an evil spirit, a tormenting spirit in Saul. So that's what Saul has. David's been filled with God's Holy Spirit. And when we think about the battles that we face, what can we do when we have God's provision? Sadie Smithson grew up in Johnson Falls, West Virginia. Her father ran a livery stable. She tried to help make ends meet by doing some sewing. Everyone in the family is trying to contribute, and they live just barely above the poverty level. But now, Sadie had a dream. Sadie wanted to be part of the Laurel Literary Society. That was sort of the upper crust of the town. That's what she wanted to be a part of. So when she graduated from high school, she went to the Laurel Literary Society and applied. And Sadie Smith was rejected. She thought, perhaps they'll think better of me if I do something really unique, something special. I'll go to Europe. Very few people from Johnson Falls, West Virginia had ever traveled abroad. She thought, I will go to Europe. So she saved for years, saved her money, and makes a trip to Europe. She thinks, now when I come back and I have the paper in front of me and I'm telling them about my trip to Europe, they can't keep me out of the Laurel Literary Society. She gets there. She's traveling with a couple. And they're in Belgium on their way to Paris, France, when suddenly they find themselves in the outbreak of World War I. Shells are flying around. They get off the side of the road, and when they get out of the car, they find there's a wounded soldier there. And Sadie goes to him, and she's kneeling down. He says, for the sake of God, give me water. So she grabs a cup, and she heads to a nearby stream and finds another soldier there, and he's begging for water. She's going back and forth. She's finding other soldiers. She's nursing them. She's trying to help them. She's praying over them. May God watch over you and keep you and bless you. She's tearing part of her clothing and making bandages for them. She stays through the night. Now the couple says, we got to go. She says, you're going to go without me. See, she's there to serve. She didn't know she was there to serve, but she was. In the morning, an ambulance showed up. And a lieutenant gets out. And he said, who are you and what in the world are you doing here? She said, I'm Sadie Smith from West Virginia, and I've been holding hell back all night. He said, it's a good thing, because everyone else in the world has been loosing hell all night. She gets on the ship later to come back to the United States. And she's telling a new friend about her experience, about being rejected by the Laurel Literary Society, why she came to Europe, her experiences there. He said, well, certainly the Laurel Literary Society will have to accept you now. She said, it doesn't matter. That's not important to me now. He said, well, what is important? She said, God and love and doing what he's called me to do. You see, David knew what he was called to do. He didn't know when he was sitting by his father that morning to go check on his brothers. He didn't know what was about to happen. But he knew that he was called to defend the God that had chosen him to be the next king of Israel. Against this Philistine, against this heathen, he said he knew that he was supposed to do this. I've killed the lion, I've killed the bear. This is just another animal that I'm going to take out for God. But I won't do it on my own strength. It won't happen on my strength. Verse 37, the Lord who delivered me from the paw of the lion and the paw of the bear will deliver me from the hand of this Philistine. So he knew that it was going to be from the power of God. David displayed boldness in God's strength. He had belief in God's provision, but he also knew he had to have just the basic tools to achieve God's victory. Verse 38, then Saul dressed David in his own tunic. He put on a coat of armor on him and a bronze helmet on his head. David fastened on his sword over the tunic and tried walking around because he was not used to them. I cannot go in these, he said to Saul, because I'm not used to them. So he took them off. Then he chose his staff in his hand, chose 5 smooth stones from the stream, put them in the pouch of his shepherd's bag, and with his sling in his hand, approached the Philistine. Okay, now this guy, 9 feet tall, 125 pounds of armor, got this huge spear, 15-pound head on it. He's got a shield bearer who's going out in front of him, as if he really needs someone to carry a shield for him. But, you know, you got the armor, but he's still got this. David says, I'm going to take a staff, I'm going to take 5 rocks, and I'm going to take my sling. Just the basics. The basics over the bronze weapons. What does it take to do that? Goliath, big target. Now, I'm granted that big target. But you only got 5 stones. You hit him anywhere in here, what's going to happen? He's got the armor on. Rocks are going to bounce off. So it takes the basic tools, but also takes being on target. Trusting in God to guide what we are doing. David had one area that he could use as Goliath's weak point. That's right here. And that was all he needed. He was bold based on God's power. He had belief in God's provision. He only needed the basic tool to achieve God's victory. You see, that's where our church is. We don't have to be huge. We don't have to have all the fancy things to accomplish what God wants to do in this church body. It is amazing what God has done. Like the church in South Carolina starts from a whole Bible study and now it's 25,000 members. And some people thinking, I would never go to a church that large. Why not? Why wouldn't we? I wouldn't know anyone there. Oh yeah, you would. You'd find your Bible study, and that's your small church. Bible studies typically going to be about this size of group, at the largest. And that's your small church family. We see that large church, it's got some ministry capabilities that a small church can't do. They can do a lot of things for little kids. They can do things for younger kids. They can do things for teenagers that right now we can't do. And if I can be a part of supporting a church like that, then why not? You see, sometimes we get so focused on what we want from a church rather than what can I give a church. Can we be bold and say, I'll go to a big church. If God anoints this church to be a big church, I'll go and support that. Can I believe in God's provision that He will give us the people, He will give us the financial resources to accomplish those other ministries? Absolutely. But it goes back to the basic tools. And what are the basic tools that you and I are going to use? It's going to be God's Word. It's going to be prayer. It's going to be supporting one another through encouragement. It's going to be through small groups like this. That's the basic tools that we use today to grow a church. When we were members of Two Rivers, 2,500 was often the attendance on Sunday morning. Many people we would see and never had a chance to get acquainted with. Because they're leaving service, you're on your way to service. So you never had a chance to always get to know them. But often through other ministries, we did get acquainted with them. We got many, many great friends from that time. God can use any situation. No matter how daunting, how large it is, how illogical it might seem to us, God will get the victory. We just have to be bold through God's power. Believe in His provision and realize the basic tools are all that we need.